Well, just really excited. A little nervous, but excited. Yeah, you're right. I'm gonna go get a chair, and I'll be right back to turn the video on. Okay. Okay.
Hey, hold on, let me figure this out. Okay, let me get better lighting. Oh my gosh. Are you guys surviving this cold weather?
I hate
Okay,
it. I hate
y'all,
the
what
cold.
is up?
Oh my
We
gosh,
are
it
live
just
and
it
stuff.
just so violently got cold. I
We
was like,
are
there was
so
no
live and
like,
stuff. Let me make
transition.
sure.
It was just immediately cold.
Oh, y'all can definitely hear my audio. Okay. Hey, y'all, what is up? I told y'all. Listen, this is new for me. Okay, I'm figuring things out as I go, and I hope that wasn't too like ear blasting to hear like everything else in the background. But you all just got a little primer on who we're gonna have on the show today. Um, but before I get into all of that, hey y'all, what is up? Thank y'all for coming. This is so great. As y'all know, this is something's got to give, and as you already know, this is Serenity. I'm your host, and I'm so glad you guys stopped here and are willing to listen to me and my friends tonight. I hope you all are doing well. I hope you ate good. I hope you're cuddled up and warm in this cold weather. And yeah, so let me see who we got with us so far. If you are live with me, please put something in the chat so I can see, so I can say hello. We're going to get started in just a few moments. But today, I wanted to talk to you all about the Florida Democratic Party. I know this has been a conversation. I've been seeing it a lot on Twitter. Of course, people have been having this conversation for years. And now, again, with the midterm elections passing the other week, in Florida, our state legislature is now a supermajority Republican. Literally, all the Democrats don't have to show up to work, and the work of the state will still go on, which is frightening to say the least. um, and we're gonna talk about it. Wow, that was just a piece of lint on my lip. And we're gonna talk about it tonight. We're gonna talk about what happened, why this is happening, and figure out where we go from here. And with me, I have three of my bestest friends. I have Nicole Souza. She is a rock star, honestly, organizer, advocate, and she worked on Josh Johnson's campaign, a local campaign for county commission here in Leon County this cycle. Although Josh unfortunately did not win, don't get me started. We're going to talk about what happened there because I think it is honestly something that should be discussed, because it was not because Josh is a bad candidate. He was obviously the best candidate. Not to equate Nick Maddox to Herschel Walker, but what Chappelle said about like Walker and Raphael Warnock, it's like one is obviously better. And then I also have Shelby Green. She ran her own campaign this cycle as well for city commission. And also another former candidate, Will. Why am I blanking on Will's last name right now? It's because I keep looking at his name in the Discord. Crowley. His name is obviously Crowley, but I keep looking down at his name on Discord, and it's Will Bo Baggins. From okay, y'all know what it's from. All right, but I went blank every time I look down at the computer and see his name and see Bo Baggins on there. Okay, anyways, and he also ran for a county commission seat this cycle. And we're just going to be talking about the party, how these races went, what happened, and this is just going to be a chill conversation. Again, I'm so glad that you all are able to join me today. Will join all of us. So let me make sure I am in the room.
Early.
Hey, y'all.
When they release those reservations, you can
they
like
can't
jump
hear me
on
either.
it and try to get a spot.
Okay, that's promising.
Hey, y'all ready? Okay.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so please bear with me. Let me make sure. I think I set this up right.
Oh
no!
Oh, on the YouTube as well? Ooh, okay. You have to show me how to do that.
Amazing.
Woo, hey.
Thank you.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
I agree.
Oh gosh. Cool. Well, you should absolutely go first.
Who, me? Okay. Okay. It's funny. So my name is Will Crowley, and every time I've had to do like some sort of public thing where they call my name out loud, they always say Crowley,
Mm.
whether it was like high school graduation or anything else. So I had to, correct a few people, but it's not that big a deal at the end of the day. But yeah, so I'm Will Crowley. I recently ran unsuccessfully for Leon County Commission. District 2, Nicole was my campaign manager, and has been a friend of mine for quite a while. Shelby also has been a friend for a while, and so yeah, I'm originally from South Alabama. Moved up to Tallahassee after living in Central Florida for many years. Went to school here, stuck around here, and really got introduced into local, city and county government during Jeremy Matlow's campaign. So not very long, just you know, um, really interested in learning more about the city and the county and the dynamics, and really want to see it be better. So that's why I'm here to learn from y'all and everybody else.
That was a really nice intro. I don't mind going next. It's so funny, like, being a former candidate and, like, having your bio or introduction, like, memorized. And now that I'm no longer, I'm like, "Oh, I kinda just, like, get to say whatever I want." So, I'm Shelby Green. I ran also unsuccessfully, but I actually think it was, like, successful in the terms of, like, really forcing me to be more open, about voicing my opinions and concerns about the city and just everything that I see. So I ran for city commission, didn't win, but learned a lot on the campaign trail. And I came to Tallahassee in 2014 to study chemical engineering. And while I was in school, I worked at Leon County's Office of Sustainability. And that was like such a good experience for me in terms of just like really seeing how government operates and learning about the behind the scenes. Because most of the time you just see your city or county commissioners, but staff is really the people who do the work. So it was a really good environment to just really learn about how do you craft policies and write policies that are favorable to city commissioners or county commissioners. Um, After graduating, I worked at a tech startup. It was remote, so I got to stay in town, which is like really rare for college students. Most college students don't stay, especially after they graduate with a degree in engineering. So I stayed and got back involved in organizing and politics and really trying to make the city more progressive and more transparent and hold our elected leaders accountable. And then decided to run for office after I witnessed how they treated us during the pandemic. Um, so there are a lot of things they could have done better, but I really cared about them not shutting off people's power, especially not without a press release. That was the bare minimum, and they didn't even communicate that. So I have a strong belief that we should have standards for our city officials or our elected officials, and I really believe in, making sure that people are being treated properly. So aside from all that, I work as an energy policy researcher and also a software developer.
Yeah. Okay. So, I saw that people were saying that they can't hear me, and I just realized that I did not add my microphone onto the thing. So now, hopefully, people can hear me
That's
on
important.
YouTube. Yes, very important. But yes, I think I can. I see that I can. My audio's on now, so hopefully everyone can hear me there. But yeah, no. First of all, Will and Shelby are two, absolute badasses, honestly, because it takes a lot to throw your hat in a ring and run a race. And they honestly put both feet forward, or jumped in with both feet. What is the phrase? Whatever it is, y'all, y'all did it. And a lot of people, there's a lot of people that said they haven't done that. So, thank you for doing that. And we're gonna go ahead and go to Nicole. I think everyone can hear me now. Yeah, perfect. Okay, good. So go ahead, Nicole.
Hey, everybody. My name's Nicole Sosa. So just a little bit of my background. I actually grew up in poverty. I was homeless with my family for about 5 years as a teen. I actually moved up here with them, and that's kind of what got us out of homelessness. I've been kind of doing community organizing here in Tallahassee since about 2016. I helped start the Democratic Socialist of America chapter here back then. And I was the state committee woman for the Leon County Democratic Party for a little while, starting in 2020. I got involved in organizing because of my experiences when I was younger. I know firsthand how important it is to think of the human cost of policies when we are making them. And I think that's something our local officials kind of ignore a little bit. I did recently work as the campaign manager for Will's campaign for County Commission, District 2. And then after that, I worked as a campaign coordinator for Josh Johnson's campaign for County Commission at large. So that's kind of what I've been doing recently.
Yeah, see, just three great people. Honestly, I look up to all of you, honestly, truly, because again, it takes a lot to do what you guys do. But I mean, doing what you guys do, what it's like to, run a campaign, a Democratic campaign, and Nicole and Will, the structure of the party itself, both by being committee people for the party. And so, like I said at the beginning, I guess I want to talk about Josh's campaign real quick. And if I could pull up, I saw that the map guy, that's what I call him on Twitter, did,
So,
yeah, do you know
Matt
his real name?
Isbell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's his real name?
his name is Matt
Timothy.
Isbell, I think, right?
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
is it?
I think so, yes, but
yeah,
I
I'm
love
pretty
Map
sure.
Guy, honestly.
Yeah.
He's forever the map guy.
I
Um,
love that.
but he makes, of course, maps of various different races across the state. And one that I found pretty interesting to look at was, of course, Josh's results. And if I could pull that up real quick, let me see the best way I can do this. But just to keep talking before I pull it up, the caption on it says that, of course, this is the map for the runoff for the Leon County at large. And it was against two African Americans, Nick and Josh. And Josh obviously won the student population, TCC, FSU, FAMU, pretty handedly. He won against white progressive students, younger black voters, while Nick was, he won amongst older black voters, older people in general, and of course, heavy on the Republicans and those way out in the suburbs. So,
Hmm.
Nicole, I guess from your perspective, from this race, how do you think it went? And, just your thoughts on the results from that.
Well, I think that it was a huge victory. And I think that even though we lost, I think that, people like Nick Maddox should be shaking in their boots, like, thinking about the fact that if they continue on the path that they're on, ignoring their constituents and not bringing anything materially positive to their lives, that they will eventually lose their seats. Um, we only lost by, I think, a little bit less than 7,000 votes. Um, and that was with Nick Maddox's campaign, getting money from big developers and things like that. He raised 3 times the money that we did because we did it completely grassroots, where, we didn't take any money from special interests. We took small donations from just people who live in Leon County. And we still got within 7,000 votes of him. And yes, like you said, I looked at that map and the breakdown also. And he won younger Black voters, he won progressives, he won, everybody on that side. But I think what really hurt us was that, one, Black voter turnout was actually like really, really low here, even though in many other states during the midterms, Black voters are, turning out as what saved a lot of progressive candidates and, won them their elections. It's an extremely important electorate. I think that hurt us. And I also think that, and partially not to go too into the weeds, but I think that a lot of that from things that I've been reading is people are afraid to go out and vote, because of Ron DeSantis's, election police force and, arresting mostly Black voters who are trying to register to vote. Um, anyway, but I think that the fact that there was very low Black turnout, there was also pretty low turnout of Democrats here, when usually we have a lot more Democrats turning out to vote than we do Republicans, because we're heavily Democrat here in Tallahassee. We had a lot more, you know, proportionally Republicans turning out. And Republicans here knew that, who they wanted to vote for in the mayor's race was John Daly, and who they wanted to vote for county commission was Nick Maddox. And those two were kind of grouped together this election cycle, and anything that you saw come out. So I honestly think that if we had some better voter turnout, and if we had, a better state party that was, delivering on promises and giving money to local DCs to help these candidates, that we probably could have won. I think a lot of the people who turned out were just more moderate. And I also think that some people, like older voters, were a little bit afraid of Josh because they viewed him as being a radical because he has more progressive sensibilities. But I don't think that's what made us lose. I think what made us lose was, and again, barely, was just the fact that the voter turnout was bad, on our side. So
Yeah.
those are just my initial thoughts.
Oh no, I definitely agree with you with everything there. And a thing that I said the moment like election night was over or whatever was, yeah, like Daley, Nick, they won because of Republicans, and map guy here showed us definitely like that is the case. Like that big green space up in the north, what is that, east of the county, it's like they barely even live in Tallahassee. Like they
I
don't
know.
really understand what is going on deeper in like the county, into the actual city, into the other spots of the county that are more impoverished or are struggling at this time. And what Josh, I guess, was saying during his campaign is like, these are the people I'm talking to, and those are the people he won. Um, and so
Right.
it oh, one thing I wanted to, like, I guess mention in this conversation is about like the of course turnout, and why I think that is of course a failure of the party in failing to have a unified message that will want to bring people out. Of course, people who don't follow like local politics, um, they're looking at like the state race, or the national conversation, the national narrative, and it felt like the Democratic Party was not delivering. And I guess like from you guys' perspective, and anybody can answer this too, and like, you know, what first of all, what did you think the Democratic message was this cycle, statewide or nationally, however you want to take it? And then, where where I guess was what was missing.
Yeah, I
Um,
think oh.
oh, go ahead, Shelby.
Um, I think that the Democratic's message was we're not Ron DeSantis. And that was pretty much the biggest thing is, do you want this? And I think that's honestly where the Democratic Party went wrong. I got a chance to talk to a few people after they went to go vote, and a lot of them who are like, who don't seem like the average Republican, a lot of them were just saying that the Democrats focus too much on we're not Ron DeSantis or too much on you should be against these things instead of, really giving people the vision of this is what you should be for, or these are things you should be voting for, or these are the things that you should have a desire for. Um, I think that's where the Republican Party did a good job of, which is like, yeah, maybe the things that we're for are not the best things, but we're for, choice and we're for freedom and we are for individuality. So I think the biggest message that the Democrats were pushing is we are against or Ron DeSantis or we're pro abortion access, where I feel like they should have been pushing more. I don't know. I feel like the Party needs some reform. They need to think about how did they originally get the working class people and young students and people who felt like they just fell between the cracks. How did they originally reach those people through messaging versus just like saying we're anti Ron DeSantis? That's not enough to get people to the polls.
Hmm. Well, our male voice, because we're inclusive here. What's up?
I appreciate the opportunity for representation. I I've heard folks say just like a basics of political strategy is you want to try and bring out your base as much as possible without bringing out too many of the opposition's base. And it seems to me that the Democratic Party in Florida focused too much on the latter and not as much on the former. Statewide, I feel like we ran candidates that very much accepted the terms of debate set by the Republican Party. We had a former Republican running in the mayor's race, and I personally supported Charlie Crist because I was following the lead of progressives like Anna Escamani, Carlos Guillermo Smith, who are voices I trust um, in the Florida Party. But at the end of the day, former Republican governor, we had a former police chief running against Marco Rubio, and we had these candidates running against you know defund the police. They were left punching in their own party. They're accusing the Republicans of being communists. It felt very much like they were trying to I don't know. I feel like if I was a swing voter, maybe a right leaning voter, that would feel like it's insulting my intelligence because I know that you're the Democratic Party. I know you're not the Republican Party. Um, you know, and so you can bash the idea of defunding police all you want, but what are you doing? What are you going to say about the fact that my bills at the end of the month are more than my income is? And I just really think that it's that simple. I point back to the fact that the minimum wage increase a couple of years ago got more votes than any statewide candidate of either party for my entire adult life in the state of Florida. So, um, you know, people are not people don't just have their whole political spectrum where all of their views are far right or all of their views are far left or all of their views are smack in the middle. People have a mix of different views that might seem incoherent to like a political scientist. My own family, very conservative, you know, but at the same time, very much in favor of things like free school lunch programs and whatnot. So I do think that there is room for a populist economic message that the state Democratic Party has just completely neglected.
Yeah, that is definitely my take on it is that and I'm trying to be, I don't know why I'm trying to like watch my words a little bit, but
There's
child,
no need to be
but
diplomatic
but
here.
this is the thing is because the last time y'all don't know this, but the last time I said something, I had somebody make a whole video. They woke up one morning and had me on their mind,
Oh
bright and
my
early
god.
in the morning with their phone out,
It
talking,
comes with the
referring
territory,
to me,
right?
but they deserved it. But what I mean to say is that like I what Will I guess touched on and what Shelby touched on too is that like the Democratic Party is just missing the conversation that I think people have been screaming
Mhm.
at them to talk about, and
Yeah.
it's that you know what I was scared of though before the election was that maybe Chris loses but Val Demings wins, and then the immediate thing was, oh, it's because she ran on like not defunding the police. And it's like, if she won off of that, it's not because of that. She won because people maybe just really didn't like Marco Rubio, and
Mhm.
not because she's running on not defunding the police. And I think that the Democratic Party is trying really hard to just ignore their base for some reason, to ignore like the things that their base is saying that they want. It's like uh and also what Will said about um I guess trying to point the feet like the Republicans calling the Democratic Party communist. Like, why is that even a valid statement? Like it because it's actually false. Like no one is actually communist. There is no communism. Like or is like every time a Republican says that, the Democrats should just be like, you're actually factually incorrect. Like that's not true. But for some reason, like the Democratic Party just never hits back hard on these sort of topics. And you know and then that Miami Dade for the first time I guess in a while went to the Republican Party this year. And the first like hot takes that I see on Twitter is, oh, it's because the Latin community is scared of communism and they keep hearing that the Democratic Party is communist. And it's like I why is the Democratic Party folding to these sort of just actually factually incorrect like statements? Oh, what is happening there?
Well, what's crazy is, I'm Latino, so Latina, and a big part of that people are ignoring, a big part of why, a lot of the Latino vote keeps going to Republicans over the past few years is because the Florida Republican Party has like an extremely robust floor, like, game, like field work game. Like it's amazing. Like, and the Democratic Party in Florida does not have that. They have field offices in like multiple areas of places like Miami and cities in Florida where they actually send their people, and those people do, you know, like field work and have boots on the ground campaigns where they're going to voters and they've got information on candidates and also other things in Spanish. They have people who speak Spanish, like they do radio ads on all the radio stations in those cities in Spanish, whereas the Democratic Party doesn't have that. They have like that's something that the Florida Democratic Party, the FDP, needs to be, doing with their donations. They need to be establishing grassroots organizing field offices in multiples of them in cities in Florida, especially in places like Miami-Dade that are huge, and they need to make sure they have people who can communicate with the Latino population. But that's a big part of it is that they have, instead of using the money that they raise on that, they use it on things like throwing huge parties for their wealthy donors, which is something they actually did when I was a state committee woman. They used tens of thousands of dollars. It was something like 20 to $30,000 on liquor from ABC Liquors to have a party for their donors. Like, and to go, you had to donate an exorbitant amount of money that, the everyday working class person doesn't have, so right there, you're also blocking out these working class people and alienating them from the party. Like they don't feel like they're important or that they belong to this party. But that money should be going to things like establishing field offices, like getting people on the ground, talking to voters, building relationships with voters, seeing what they want, what they need, and then ensuring that you're going out there not just to register them to vote and to like earn their vote, but you're also going out near election time to make sure they actually turn out to vote, and so on and so forth. So, the I like it's so funny to see those takes where they're like, oh, they're, just afraid of communists and, they think the Democrats are communists is just like, of course, there are a few people, like specifically some Cuban Americans, who have their families came from Cuba, that are concerned about that. But that's not why the Miami-Dade flipped red. They flipped red because the only one who has a presence in Miami-Dade, the only party, is the Republican Party. So
I mean, it's so obvious, but it feels like, what, as a, trying to think of it as a person just like not in politics at all. It's like, wow, hearing this, it's like, well, duh, like, why is nobody doing anything? Like, what is happening? And my first thought, again, maybe I spent too much time on Twitter, but like, so just seeing tweets about like all these different like consultants or people like coming in and saying, hey, like, this is what you need to be spending your money on. Like, people, your people, I guess, are already going to turn out for you. Who's going to turn out for you? um so I guess maybe we should be focusing on, I don't know, some sort of uh I don't even know, like, what would you even call like these party, like what would this purpose of these parties even serve, or these like sort of parties that you're talking about even serve, other than just making people feel good? um it's it's really odd to hear that. And again, like, this sort of like statewide failure again hurts local races. Again, people like Josh, who literally only needed a couple more people to say, hey, my voice is needed in this election, let me turn out, and vote down the ticket for these other people. And I guess from that perspective, it's like, for local candidates, and maybe Will and Shelby can talk a little more about this and in their experience in running, of like, you know what how do you feel that structure is, in terms of maybe the local party, in supporting, I guess maybe progressive candidates, or people, I guess, candidates like you, Will, locally, or a part of the party, if that makes sense. Did I even make sense?
That question to me,
Yeah.
and the question is, how can locally we support more progressive candidates?
Yeah, and I guess your experience being a local candidate, and how do you feel supported by the party?
Sure. In my circumstance, actually, before I ran, I was already serving as the District 2 representative for the local Leon County Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party is very careful about trying not to intervene in primaries between Democrats. And I think you can agree with that idea or disagree with that idea, but that's just the lay of the land. So I think you could easily defend why it would be. I mean, I don't necessarily agree that a strong, a lot of times donor motivated organization should be weighing in. That could very easily give a disadvantage to grassroots candidates. My experience from what I saw, District 2 is a unique district within the county, very rural, very low income in a lot of places, and very, very low turnout, and that didn't change in the general here either. Very low turnout, just a very disengaged community. And with the exception of a few places, not as well organized as, say, District 1 with Bond Community and other entities like that. As far as what we can do to support, I mean, this kind of goes back to, statewide or even nationally, that the Democratic Party has a fundamental disconnect between its donor class and its base, and I think that bifurcation gets worse over time as capital is concentrating. As for the old phrase, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Well, that means that there's fewer people, fewer individual Democrats that are able to give money to individual candidates, to issue campaigns or just to the party. And so that means it gives those donors even more control, and even less. It's just really hard to raise money, especially as a grassroots candidate who's trying to make a value statement by saying I'm not going to take corporate money because I don't even want there to be a hesitation in somebody's mind about why I'm doing this, right? But I do think the advantage that grassroots candidates can have um, is getting people out to do voter engagement. I think especially if you have spent some time, and that's one thing I wish I had done 2 years ago. Of course, my race was unexpected, and I just kind of had to jump. But if I could go back 2 years ago, and that's definitely what I'm going to do now, is spend more time with neighborhood associations and different interest groups in town of people to kind of help organize. And that's what I keep telling people as well. I think the biggest contribution you can make to any campaign, whether it's an issue or a candidate, is to volunteer, to phone bank, but especially to knock doors. There's a lot of money that is spent on TV and radio and billboards and everything else, but as far as I know, the numbers I've seen, the only thing that actually gets people out and gets them thinking about you and maybe even changes their mind is interacting with them personally, showing up, and not just once, but following up multiple times, building that relationship. And that's what I'd like to see more of that done. And that's kind of where my focus is over the next 2 years.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Go ahead, Shelby, if you had something to add, please.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to that. I think what Will is talking about is that at a state level, the Democrats are not investing into maintaining or even really building a communication pipeline or infrastructure. The Democrats are really only coming around closer to the election time, and people are wondering, where were you during the pandemic when we were struggling? Where were you when we were fighting for some of these causes and you did not lend a voice to us? So I think the Democratic Party is really battling with how do we reform and lend voices and resources to people who are at the lower bottom of the party. Because when you think about the party, in my mind, I think about Democrats as being for the people, but there's still a hierarchy within the structure of the Democratic Party. So there are people who are at the bottom who normally look like us, whether they be younger or minority, who are the ones who are doing the work, who are the ones who know what the problems are, and who are the ones who are suggesting solutions. But because the Democratic Party maintains this power hierarchy, what we experience does not translate to the higher level for problems to be solved. So instead, and I'm sure, and I saw on Twitter, people have been saying this for a long time now, that the party needs to be reformed and that the party is not listening to the people doing the work. But it didn't become a conversation until recently when we saw the results of the midterm elections. So I think this is really a turning point where the party needs to listen to the people who are at the bottom, listen to the people who do the work, and build and maintain that communication infrastructure. We need to be talking to voters year round. When there's affordable housing issue, we need to get them connecting the dots between the local and state players who influence the housing market. And those who regulate the housing market are the same ones who get money from big developers to maintain the housing market. So there needs to be more education, and there needs to be this really built pipeline. That's what the Republicans are doing. They're very good at maintaining communications, going out and finding new voters or swinging people to their side. And we just don't do that in the Democratic Party. So yeah, big echo for Will. The biggest issue here is that people are thinking about these things. People have these problems. They want solutions. They want to figure out, how can I get my issue resolved? And the Democratic Party is not doing what they used to do back in the day. I was actually listening to Shirley Chisholm's book Unbossed and Unbothered, and she's talking about how the Democratic Party used to have meetings on Monday and Wednesday nights where residents could come and just get their issues resolved. We need to be talking to the people more. And that takes a lot of work. Like, it is not easy organizing, talking to voters, publishing city commission meetings. That takes a lot of work, but it can be done on a grassroots level. It can be done collectively. But the Democratic Party needs to realize that and needs to seek out those individuals who are doing the work and make sure they're being resourced.
Yeah, I always that communication thing, I think you like hit it right on the head. Like I remember growing up and my dad used to talk about this all the time. But about like the Republican Party in general having the control of communications down to the radio, down to again these YouTube shows, down to even higher up with like Fox News and all that stuff. Literally, you can follow the topics that they want to talk about from the top all the way to the bottom and from the bottom all the way to the top. And it's the same message all the way through. It's the same thing all the time. And the Democratic Party, I just can't see where they have that sort of structure. And I think that is obviously a failure because now you're having these, again, I guess like you will call them echo chambers of the Republican Party again saying the same thing over and over. And I mean, that I think that sort of structure I could even pinpoint to a local issue being about like the Doak Campbell issue is that, and I think I talked about this a little bit too on the Tallahassee Alert debate, was that I was like, the only thing I could compare this to is like a psyop, because how are these people saying like, oh, well, that Doak thing doesn't matter anymore. I don't care. Oh, it's because they keep hearing over and over that it's some sort of conspiracy or something, or well, if you support Doak, then that means that you support you support FAMU getting money. Like it's this sort of like again, I guess it's just a spinning or like a changing of the narrative of what like the reality actually is. And I think the people who get the hurt the most are again everyone who doesn't really follow politics or doesn't really follow government actions in general, period. Um, and in that case, it's like, that's I think that's our being the Democratic Party, like that's our base. Like those are the people that we're trying to turn out. Those are the people who are either staying home or locally are deciding to vote for John Daly because they feel like they're hearing, well, John Daly, he gave FAMU money, so I guess I can't be mad that he gave FSU money, or I don't really know. I'm hearing that this money couldn't be used for anything else. So why is everyone getting upset? What is the problem? Um, Nick Maddox, he pulled me to the side one day at a Frenchtown Rising and showed me a piece of paper of things that he did these past 12 years. So it's like, I mean, who's this Josh Johnson guy? But I think it's again that sort of like communication, like it's missing entirely. And Nicole's been laughing at me this whole time. So go ahead.
I'm just laughing because the imagery of Nick Maddox pulling out his list of stuff he did makes me laugh. But I mean, because he did do that. And there was a small handful of people, and a lot of these people were older, who were like, oh, okay, that's enough for me. Look, he did do this stuff, not like think either, they just don't know, because a lot of people are not plugged into local, politics. I wasn't either until around 2016, and they actually impact your life, I would say, even more than national politics, because they directly impact you, it's where you live. But a lot of people just don't understand that, or they don't have the time and they don't have the energy, and I get that. But they weren't thinking about the fact, they saw this list and they were like, yeah, that's great. They weren't thinking about the fact, though, that one, this dude has been in that seat for 12 years. Like 12 years. I've been in the county for 13 years. I've never met Nick Maddox. I've never had him come to my door. I've never had a canvasser for Nick Maddox come to my door. I've never had any contact from that office, like not even just to be like, hey, what are your concerns? What would you like to see? Nothing. But yeah, he's been in that seat 12 years, and to be honest, I don't care what kind of list you have about what you did because it clearly was not enough, you know. And also, you have to think to compare that to the list of things he's done that, you know, is harmful to our most vulnerable communities, like the Doak deal and his vote on Doak. You know, a lot of that money, you know, and he'll come up with excuses all day about, you know, how, you know, you can't really, all that they can do about something like affordable housing is what they're doing, you know, but it's not true. um, all that money could have gone to, you know, affordable housing projects. It could have gone to putting, you know, sidewalks on Tharp Street so, you know, kids and families can walk without being in danger, you know. It could have gone to a lot of things that would have, you know, served our community better, but you gave it to FSU, you know, because your donors probably wanted you to give it to FSU and also you played football at FSU or whatever. So that just made me laugh because you're right, you know.
You touched on two things. Oh, I'm so sorry. Shelby, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go first, Serenity. I was just gonna make another point about Dope, but you go first.
Oh no, like I was gonna say that you know, locally there's also a little like Republican communications pipeline, and it
Mhm.
starts at FSU. It starts with the I saw the Tomahawk Nation or whatever, or it goes into like the Grow Tallahassee stuff. Who's that's being ran, I guess, by former FSU people or boosters. The what is it for TLH? Like
Mhm.
there's also like a local communication structure, a local like maybe they wouldn't call themselves Republican, but you know they're obviously more maybe moderate or right wing people running this sort of again operation of trying to uh, control the narrative of certain projects and issues in Tallahassee and just confuse people.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Shelby.
Yeah, and I think that's where it gets scary because if you're an everyday person and you want to learn more about just civic related local news, what's happening in your community, you have the option of going to the Tallahassee Democrat, but then you like get paywalled after 3 articles. Who's going to pay for articles if they're just wanting to learn? And then you can go to the open free sources, and that may be Grow Tallahassee, that obviously has an agenda that they're not super transparent about. Formerly Our Tallahassee, that also had an agenda as well. And so it's like, where can you go to just find out what's happening in your community? And we're not like, I think like journalism is dying a slow death in Tallahassee. It needs to be revived here. We need more people telling their stories and sharing their experiences about living in this city that we all inhabit, and also their interactions with our city officials to make it a better place for everyone. Um, but it's really hard to do that when you have three really big players that control the narrative. So if you're like an independent person that wants to share your story, it's not going to reach as many people as it would with a bigger platform. So I think like or I don't even want to say like the Republicans, but there's definitely like when it gets down to the local level, there is like this political spectrum. And I think the people that Nick Maddox was able to capture are those who are in the suburbs and families and the middle class who just want to live a simple life in Tallahassee and don't have to think about what the working class deals with. They don't have to interact with the roads because they drive a car. They don't have to interact with no sidewalks or infrastructure because they drive a car. They don't have to worry about the bus because they can afford to drive a car. Um, so I think that the people that Nick Maddox was trying to reach are the people who are actively participating in our society because they pay their taxes and they're informed residents and their lived experiences are a lot different than the working class who may not have access to information, who may just be here on a temporary level, who may not even want to participate because they don't know how long they're going to be in Tallahassee. I was trying to get out a lot of students to get out on the vote, and a lot of them didn't receive like that education of capitalism or of like democracy or like just being conscious of politics because they also got onto campus during a time when it's post-COVID. So there's no infrastructure or education um, that's connect or no educational groups or advocacy groups reaching out to students. So I think that I'm kind of like going in circles a little bit, but just kind of commenting on Josh and Nick Maddox's race, Maddox was able to capture those people who are in the middle class, who are in the suburbs, who are in the Northeast that have very particular interests versus Josh Johnson was trying to capture, the working class and progressives. And some of them are just not participating in our democracy because they don't have access to information and because they think of themselves as not really residents of Tallahassee, they think of themselves as temporary. So there's a lot of things that we have to combat and talk about and address before the next election cycle. And I think a lot of that comes down to communication, but it also comes down to is, okay, well, we have these communication arms in Tallahassee. All of them have an agenda. Where can you get honest, trustworthy news if you don't want to pay for it? So that's a really big problem here.
Yeah,
I
I think.
think another
Oh, go ahead.
thing. Oh, go ahead,
Oh no,
Serenity.
no, no. This is for y'all.
Oh,
These
I
y'all.
was just going to say another issue too. Kind of jumping off what Shelby said is, and from, all of us, including you, Serenity, have had this experience with in the Democratic Party is the insistence on people who are registered as Democrats and in the Democratic Party leadership, or even just a person who participates in the actual party, mechanics as like a precinct captain or whatever. Um, a lot of those Democrats that lean a little bit more towards the moderate side, or they lean a little bit more towards, supporting establishment Democrats. A big issue with that is the suppression of anyone who has more progressive goals. And that stems from the FDP, the state party, all the way down to the local DECs, the local parties in the counties. I know I wrote an op-ed about this, so I won't bore everyone for too long on it or about it. But back in 2020, we had like over 1,000 progressive registered Democrats, kind of run for precinct captain seats in local, Democratic parties all over the state and get elected. And our goal with that was to make the Democratic Party more democratic, make it more focused on grassroots organizing, going out, connecting with voters, building and maintaining relationships with voters, and then getting, results. And we got pushback the entire time. Like the moderates and the establishment Democrats that, want to, like pat each other on the back and like have parties with, consultants or wealthy donors, they didn't want that. They want to protect their own interest, and a lot of their interests are monetary. And, they told us that we were divisive because we disagreed with them on issues and disagreed with them as to what the party should be doing. We voted. There's something called the weighted vote. So a state committee man and a state committee woman in every county's local DEC in the Democratic Party, they can vote on things at the state party level and kind of change the direction that the state party goes in. Well, those votes are weighted depending on the population of registered Democrats in each county. So, for example, in Leon County, the state committee man and state committee woman each carry 11 votes. And somewhere like Miami, it's like 20 something because the population's higher. Well, that's one person that has all those votes representing this entire region. We voted to change the weighted vote to where if it's 11 votes, it's 11 people. We wanted it to be more democratic and have more representation. Well, we successfully passed that vote through at the state level, and they ended up coming up with a weird convoluted excuse to flip that and then take it back because they wanted to consolidate power, and I see that on the local level too with my time there. Like we were accused of being like Russian plants. It was crazy stuff, like in meetings for hours trying to convince them that we should be trying to convince our local officials to care about housing people, where while they were telling us that the only thing that the Democratic Party here is concerned about is registering Democrats and electing Democrats. No matter who the Democrat is, no matter what they do when they're in office, we don't hold them accountable as long as they're a registered Democrat. And the interesting thing with that is, as Will kind of touched on earlier, they are very careful about not getting involved in a race between two Democrats. So something like the race between Nick Maddox and Josh, they won't endorse in that race because they're both registered as Democrats. Well, Manny Diaz, the state chair, as we all know, came out and endorsed John Daly for mayor in this recent race, even though Christian Dozier is also a registered Democrat. So you see, I feel like a big problem is the establishment Democrats and the moderate Democrats in the state and the local and probably even the national party who have interests, and they want to protect those interests. And,
They pick and
they're going
choose.
to, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying they pick and choose.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They pick and choose according to what benefits them. And that I think is also a problem because I think that voters tend to feel that and tend to see it, even if they're lower information voters. They know that these people who only show up around election time just want their vote, but they don't necessarily do anything to actually improve their lives if they're elected. And so for that reason, someone who's working class or living in poverty and is exhausted and doesn't have a lot of energy, I mean, why go vote? Why spend your time doing any of that? It doesn't benefit you. And that's, I think, something that we really have to address on a state and local level if we're going to actually ever win against Republicans in Florida ever again. Like, it's just not going to be possible because within our own party, who supposedly is a party that is so different from Republicans because they actually care about people, they are purposefully excluding and suppressing the voices of people that, speak out against their interest or that they just don't agree with. And that's like shouldn't be the way that democracy works. So
That dynamic that you referred to about, like, you know the, I guess, moderate Democrats or the Democratic Party, like, choosing which candidate they want and sort of thing. I think that was definitely pretty big for Daley's race, but also for, that District 2 race between Caban and Hannah Crow. And it's like, I talked about this in an alert thing too. It's just like that, those choices are just so disappointing. Um, I mean,
yeah.
I'm speaking from a point of view where I didn't have to vote in that race. So I was just like, well, I guess thank God, but it's like so unfortunate for those who did have to vote in that race. Um, it's like, we went from someone like Will to having Caban, the, coolest club owner ever, I guess. And Hannah, who gave off like, oh, I watched the news today, so I'm gonna like sign up and run for office. Like, yeah, like that's what she was giving me, and I don't mean to belittle her, but everything I heard her talk about and say, it was just like, yeah, I care about things, so I ran, and I'm probably a Republican because my husband's a Republican. I don't really know what's going. I don't really know about like the differences. I don't know why people are upset, but yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. So it was just like, people having to sit here and like try to, I guess, parse or try to make Caban more palatable. And it's literally like, he's giving money to, what was that dude's name? Luxalt or whatever in Arizona.
Who may
And
still very well pull off a win. I understand. I
yeah.
understand that it's not very clear yet. I don't think the race has been called, but at least my understanding is Adam Laxalt, who is Ron DeSantis's former roommate, may actually win.
Wow. I thought they called it already.
Maybe they have. Maybe I'm operating on wrong information. Wouldn't be the first time.
No,
From
but
many.
like it's just so unfortunate that, again, that we have these sort of like choices, and again, having to see both of them campaign for this seat in an area where it's like pretty, again, working class, like poorer people, and you're sitting here just obviously lying to them about what you're doing, what your motivations are. From my understanding, that Hannah was still wanting to be a part of some sort of, I guess, a consulting group. Oh, was it for TLH, who's again very big developer backed? Kaban himself being very big developer backed. I mean, obviously he's an owner of a club here. Got to have a lot of developer friends to do something like that. So it's like, you know, again, what bothered me about these sort of things is like when we're trying to tell the Democratic parties like what are our principles. It is obviously like we have no principles. It doesn't matter again as long as you have a D behind your name. And I'm glad you brought up your article, Nicole, because I was going to talk about it later, but y'all need to go read Nicole's article.
Oh,
Like she like the vote blue thing, and I hear this all the time, like the vote blue no matter who. It's like, no, it kind of does matter. Like, we'll vote blue if it's like a good person, but usually folks who don't follow politics again, they're going to be like, again, feeling like, oh, I'm not even going to vote on that race, or I'm not going to vote at all, like I don't like any of the candidates. I'm not really informed enough to know like what crazy thing one person or the other is going to do, but I just don't like them, so I'm not going to do it. And it's like, again, where are the Democratic principles or the Democratic Party principles where we're saying, no, if you're going to run as a Democrat, this is what you need to stand for. These are what your values need to be. This is how you need to be aligned. And I think that's so important, especially for local races. And I guess since I brought you up, Will, I don't know if you had any thoughts on
I have
that
thoughts.
too.
I mean, I've got thoughts, and I just want to say it like this. So I've mentioned before, like I grew up in a very conservative evangelical family. I had to find my way to the Democratic Party. So, I've got, I know that people can be reached because I was reached, right? Um, I, and it took a lot of work on my part and a lot of good friends who are willing to kind of help me get along that way. Um, but at the same time, it also, you know, I had to, I had to make that choice. I had to kind of think deeply about what my values are and what I wanted, and in that process, also realizing that the Democratic Party itself is a huge obstacle to improving life for people as well. So, I mean, you say something about the values, and I absolutely agree. We've got to have we have to be clear about what it means to be a Democrat, and that's an argument that I made over and over again. I think that it's got to mean something more than just having a D by your name. I do think it has to mean more. And, you know, there were, when it came down to the general race in District 2, I think there was some, I think people disagreed about the two bad choices. Think there were folks who doesn't put the feed in what appeared Trumpier campaign. But what I will say, being more representative of the district, she actually
Oh,
had money
hang on one
from
second, Will.
individuals
Hang on,
living in that district at a higher rate
Will.
than someone like Christian Caban, who really was, um, yeah.
Okay, okay. Sorry, it was breaking up for a second. I didn't know if it was breaking up for other people, but go ahead. Go ahead. Start where you were
Sorry.
from. Mm-hmm. Is it working for you, Shelby?
He looks frozen, and then
Yeah.
Nico just
yeah,
has
I think it's
voice turning on.
frozen.
Yeah, Will. They're coming after you, dog.
They don't
Hang
want
on,
to hear
can
the truth.
you hear me?
It's the deep state. They are messing with your internet cables.
I think it's getting better.
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah, I
you.
think there's
Yeah, I
a little
think
bit of a lag.
yeah.
Are we back?
Yeah, just keep talking and we'll let you know if it sounds weird again.
Okay, so we are back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I'm sorry about that. I don't know where I was exactly, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that, I think it means something to be a Democrat. It can't just
Mm-hmm.
be a letter next to your name. Um, I think you have to actually show up and work for working people. And that goes to whether you've been a Democrat for 8 months or 80 years. You actually have to be there and represent working class folks. And that's what I think is the future of the party, is someone like Anna Eskamani, who very much works for people in her district, regardless, or even outside of her district, especially
Mm-hmm.
during COVID, and is just like a real servant of the people. And we had a bad choice in the general election in my district, in District 2, between two candidates who just very much were not that. What I will say for Hannah Crow is that her campaign was actually backed in some part by the general, um, by people, just individuals, working class folks in her district actually were supporting her race, which is different from Christian Caban's campaign, which very much was um, part of this unprecedented effort by local developers and other entities to just brute force the campaign. And I've raised this issue with some folks, and I think reasonable people can disagree with me. But there is a danger to the precedent that has been set that if you are, a generally conservative, not super political, but like, you want to make money, you're a businessman, you can improve your business, you can advance your career, and the interests of your, of people like you by, let me register as a Democrat really quickly, run for one of these nonpartisan seats, throw a ton of money to muscle out any, grassroots candidates, and then be the only Democrat in the general election, so that you can use that lever that has been used over and over again, that you got to vote for the not Trump candidate, and the lesser of two evils. So we demonstrated that model is viable in Leon
Mm-hmm.
County, and so I do think, especially with Florida Power and Light, showing more and more interest in this community with their donations to John Daly's campaign, that that model is going to be repeated. We're going to see, younger people, perhaps people of color, who are, propped up by these business interests as a way to kind of split the coalition, and get away for these, sock puppet candidates to get in there.
Mm-hmm. That.
Yeah, and they're gonna keep doing it because that is the model that can succeed right now. We have built an environment where if you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to run ads, then you're not going to win. And that to me is not representative of democracy. I think it's really embarrassing to run a campaign where you don't even knock on doors. And how can we
Yeah.
accept that? How can we allow candidates to run campaigns where they're not interacting with their constituents to get into office because they were able to have the money to run ads and repeat their names on every billboard in town? So, and that's what gets me frustrated, and that's, I think, what's contributing to this disenfranchisement. People are not interacting with their representatives. They have no idea who they are, and we have built this environment in Tallahassee and Leon County where you cannot win if you don't raise X amount of dollars. And so, where I think that we need to go to fix this is really reform the playing field. We need to make it, more equitable or more fair that encourages people, especially more exciting candidates, to run for office. And does that look like term limits? Maybe. What does that look like? I don't know, but I think that they really do have to address this problem that's growing where if you don't have a pack behind you, you can't represent your community because that is a really scary reality that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm. It is definitely very scary that, again, like Will said about, John Daly playing with the idea about selling our utilities to FPL. Again, FPL being the same organization that was running like fake candidates down in South Florida, who the last time I checked, wasn't there some sort of court case going on with that? Um, so, I mean, I guess that's sort of weak because it's been like 2 years at this point. But it's like, the fact that this guy has been able to, play with this, still win when knowing that most of our county likes our municipal utilities. Again, it's like that communication, where is it? Like, I know Daley is, a stylish, a keen politician. That man can talk him out some draws, okay? But I like it doesn't make sense that again he can be slick talking like that. You see with your eyes. The Tallahassee Democrat wrote about it. Again, like all these publications wrote about the fact that this man is being funded by these people. His wife is with them. He's had these meetings. It's a thing, but somehow that thing is not sticking to him. And I think it's because the Democratic Party, the local party, wanting to give him awards for being cool with women, or like giving him time and space, again with some other organizations of like speaking time so he could like be slick Rick. And it's like I don't, if you're going to allow a John Daly to come and speak at your event, you need to be hitting him with, okay, I heard that you was about to sell our utilities. Like, you know, tell me this is false, what the Tallahassee Democrat wrote. Like, are you sure it's false? Like, show me the checkbook. Show when did you have this meeting? Like, and I like that what maybe I'm a little biased, but Tallahassee Alert with the way they styled their forums, although well, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this, but we styled it that way because some people were like, you don't want it to be a debate. Oh, I won't say who said that, but it's like, we don't want it to be a debate. So, Bruce changing it to a like a more of like an interview style where we are still able to ask them these hard questions. Um, you know, I like that. Like, I like that we're able to, do that sort of thing. I think that's what people need to hear. And, where I guess question to you all is like, where do we go from here with now we have John Daly, now we have Nick Maddox, now we have Christian Caban as our representatives. And how do we proceed knowing that for the next at least 2 years before we can elect new people, I guess, against Curtis Richardson, um, who else would be running next time?
Jack
Jeremy.
Campbell said me.
Yeah, Carolyn Cummings, and
Carolyn Cummings.
like where do we go from here in 2 years with the Democratic Party? What do you think we could do locally in terms of the party, to make sure that we talked about the things that we talked about. One, have a communication, like a strong communication pipeline. Two, making sure that these people who run have the right principles. And I guess three, making sure folks turn out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'd
think
like. Go ahead.
go ahead, Will.
Oh, well, I just wanted to definitely echo what you were saying, Serenity. I've said this to a lot of people that as I reflect back on this election cycle, the group that impressed me the most was the Alert, Tallahassee Alert. Just what an impressive performance putting together this really flawless presentation of robust debates that you didn't necessarily bother with the hard time limits. You made sure people said what they had to say without filibustering, but exactly what you said of holding people to the fire, making sure they give a real answer, and comparing against their past statements. I thought that was super effective. Now, to your point about like really where do we go from here? I mean, yeah, what I at the risk of stating the obvious, I think that what we saw in this last election was two things: interests, different groups, material interests coming out above and beyond whatever other motivations, but also just the capability of sheer political power. Um, there's a lot of people who got involved in the local political arena with this Doak Campbell issue. And make no mistake, it was an incredibly unpopular decision. And so there's a lot of people who are disappointed and dejected, saying, "Oh man, there's so many of us. Why did we lose?" And really, like, losing was the expected outcome. Like, it really, granted, there were definitely winnable races for sure, and there's things that I could have done better as a candidate as well, and just as a volunteer on different campaigns. But I do want to give us a break and encourage folks not to, like, sell the farm and move away because it's so hopeless. Like, there is some truth to what folks have been saying, that we really are in the best situation progressives have been in Leon County in a very long time. Um, so there's a place to build from. Um, I do think we got to focus on in our own individual lives, and collectively, I think we have to focus on getting to know each other better, but also reaching out to people where they are in their lives. I would love to see someone add on to that alert model of robust interviews, high threshold for endorsement. I would love to see either alert or someone similar add on to that model a commitment to campaign on behalf of who they endorse, kind of like the city of Tallahassee firefighters did, canvassing, phone banking, that kind of stuff. That really, really moves the needle for people. So that's kind of my view on really where we go from here. I just really encourage people to not give up, and take some time, take some breaths, and relax for a little bit as much as you can. But if this was your first local election really being involved in, you know, please stick around and don't give up.
Wise words from Wilbo Baggins. Nicole, did you have something to say?
Oh, yes, I mean, absolutely, I agree with Will, like everything he said, and especially like, you know, talking about how great Tallahassee Alert was this election cycle. They're amazing. Those forums you all did absolutely amazing. I loved the follow-up conversations. You got to talk about everything in detail. Like, we just don't get that enough. I think that's really helpful. Um, I think that like from here, I think the main thing that I could see as being helpful is building a progressive coalition of people in the county and Tallahassee that works in the community and with each other all the time, not just near election cycles. And I think that we need to do that outside of the Democratic Party. I'm not sure how much utility the party has still. I think it depends on, if we're able to get enough people in the party that, want to see party reform. I think that it would be useful. But, the local Democratic Party as it stands, and also across the state has no organizing game. Like they just don't have it. Like they don't do that kind of stuff. The most that they do is try to register people to vote, and I haven't even seen them do that much of that lately. So honestly, I think their utility is pretty low. I hate to say that. I wish it were different, and it could be different, if enough people get involved. But, I know from talking to a lot of people personally that they don't want to get involved in the party because they just feel like it's a waste of time. But I think that we could bring those people into a more progressive coalition of people here that are willing to do grassroots work and willing to go out and build community relationships every day and maintain those relationships. I mean, when you show up for other people, they will show up for you, and they'll show up for their community. But first, you have to earn that from them, and the way that you earn it is by showing that you care, and you show that you care by showing up for them. I feel like we could have some sort of mutual aid component, which is greatly needed right now, with all of the people in our city and county that struggle with things like homelessness and unstable housing and poverty and, transportation and things, I really feel like that's the only way forward at this point. We have to build and maintain relationships, and we have to show each other that we care about each other, and we have to show up for each other. And I think when we do that, when the time comes and we, come together, even to maybe even decide, see who wants to run in our community and see who we want to support. I think that we'll see people turn out to vote for them in that case because they actually will care and they'll feel connected and they'll feel important and they'll feel like their voices are heard by this person. Um, yeah, that's just what I think, our next step should be. And on top of that, that goes to using that coalition to really, you know, keep the politicians in office like Daley and Maddox and Christian Caban, in check, and let them know that we want them to vote in our interests, not in their interests. That's what they, ran for, to be a representative of the public, and, to do things that will help us and help our community, not to help themselves. But I think that you know, we need enough people to make it a show of force who are dedicated to holding these people's feet to the fire. And then, if they don't listen, then we boot them out, when their term is up. So that's what I think.
Yeah, these are all like really good thoughts. I think how we move forward is we have to think about the different components in our community. One of them being, I think the Democratic Party locally needs to have a conversation about the fractures that have been made within the party and how they really haven't been addressed since like 2016. um, so there needs to be a conversation about what does the local party look like moving forward? What should the local party focus on? And also just a conversation about what are the problems that we witnessed during this last midterms and the primaries, and how can we address this moving forward? We know there's a communication problem. How can we address this? We know that there are people, especially students, who are moving to Tallahassee and have no idea what the landscape is politically. How do we help them learn more and get caught up quicker? So I think that there just needs to be a conversation within the local party about one, fixing fractures, and two, recognizing the problems that came up during the midterms and primaries and what are some efforts that can be put in place to address those. And then I think just like in terms of the progressive community in general, we just need to like have more conversation with each other. We need to be open and honest with each other and just like also like keep an eye on our elected officials and like try to hold them accountable. And I know it gets like really tiring and frustrating to go to commission meeting after commission meeting, but our dissent needs to be on record. So maybe we can organize a list of people to make sure that there's at least a representative talking about um, the dissenting voices in our community. So I think we just need to be more organized and have more communication. And then also just fix the fractures. I think the fractures also kind of harmed us as well. Um, so I'm like really hopeful for the future of Tallahassee and Leon County, but we have to really study like what went wrong during the midterms and use that as a way to propel us forward because the next election cycle is going to be the presidential cycle. That is going to be a really big race and a way to capitalize and get the progressive down ballot candidates into office.
Agreed, agreed. And I guess my final thoughts on this is something that I saw that really like burns me up and still burns me up now about this election are the so-called leaders and the so-called black leaders who are honestly just hurtful to the community in general. Um, and I know from this, from just talking to people, of just living in it, of it's oftentimes pastors, like who obviously, again, have some sort of self-interest in having a John Daly or Nick Maddox in office. And they, again, do a little electioneering. Maybe they have them come to a Sunday service, and again, they're talking to people who may not have been paying attention, may not know certain things or haven't heard about something, and they are again confusing. People are again. I'm not gonna say lie, but you know, tell not the full truth of certain situations, especially when it comes to Doge, especially when it comes to maybe um like who Josh is or what he wants to do or what he wanted to do. And so I think, you know, that whole thing, or about who Christian Dozier is, or what she wanted to do. I think we should definitely be looking at making sure we set some ground rules for, you know, these type of people, not giving them too much power over our local elections. Um, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to allow these people to have that sort of power, especially given the fact that I mean, these are the same pastors who were doing lip service for Corey Simon. I mean, it's like when are we going to say, okay, like you yourself, pastor, can believe what you want to believe, but in terms of trying to I just want to say confuse your congregation, that's not right. Um, and I definitely saw that a lot this election. Well, of course, we'll see it again coming up this next election. Um, every time somebody says they're a black leader, I just want them to like, or they're a leader in the black community. I just want to like shut off the TV. um, and it's like, you know, no, you're not. You're a pastor. And I know maybe I don't know, Shelby, if you felt this during your election too, with talking to these people, but I know I was talking to a voter, and I was like, why are you voting for, like, who are you voting for this election? And they tell me, either tell me it was John Daly, or it was Nick, or it was Diane in the city race. And I'm like, okay, well, why? And it's, well, I think they're my friend. And I say, okay, they're your friend. When was the last time you saw your friend? I feel like I'm talking to not right now, but I feel like not then, but right now I feel like I'm using a voice of like a child, but I don't mean this to be childish. But it's like, this is what they're saying, is that, oh, I really think that this person's my friend. I think they have my back. And it's like, well, when was the last time you talked to them? When was the last time they've been out here? When was the last time they did anything for you or for this neighborhood or your community? And they don't have an answer. And again, the only reason that I think that they would still hold on to those feelings is because they're hearing again during Sunday service or during Bible study or whatever, oh, I'm good friends with Williams Cox, or I'm good friends with Daly, and all that stuff they talking about in the news, don't listen to that. Like, these are the conversations that are happening in churches, and I think we should definitely be paying attention to that sort of dynamic going into 2024 and how we're engaging these communities. Of course, we should always be trying to engage these communities, but in terms of allowing these pastors to have so much pull, it's just not right. That's just my thoughts on it.
I wanted to ask a question, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in your perspective, Shelby's perspective, anyone who wants to speak on it, because it really does seem like it's a pattern. It seems like it's a strategy of kind of the business and just general conservative and moderate forces in Tallahassee, Leon County, is to, leverage certain black leaders or whatever against like going back to Nick Maddox originally winning against Cliff Thale, who was a big environmental activist, and Nick Maddox's first race was very much the development community pushing back against that environmentalist power. and we see that echoed through to today. You know, and I'm sure we will see it even stronger in 2 years from now. So I'm really interested. Am I wrong in seeing a pattern? Or you know, what do you think about how do you defeat that strategy? You know, how do you engage with that strategy of the splitting of the left coalition?
You know, well, at first, my first feelings is just like, well, younger folks, they're not that pulled by those sort of people. So it's trying to get them to come out more and vote, and that goes into more that we were talking about before. In terms of like others who again may feel some sort of pull from these people, it's hard because it's like they're not, I guess, reasoning themselves into this sort of situation. So you can't reason them out of it. And so it's not until somehow, I guess, they themselves come to some sort of self-realization or actualization, or feeling like, I see firsthand, like, no, that, they're obviously putting my hard-earned money into their pocket, is that when they get it. Maybe that comes from a communication pipeline thing where we're following that sort of situation, or we're following like where this money is going to, because I'm sure there is a paper trail for it. I mean, uh, I, I don't know. Like I think that's the only way, I feel like, for the maybe like the older voters to see. Because I know for my own family of like older Black people, they were at first. It wasn't until I was like, now auntie, let's be for real now. Like let me sit down with you real quick. Let me show you something. Um, yeah, this your hard earned money that you're putting into Sunday service every Sunday, it's going to make sure it's going to these people who are trying to close your trailer park. It's going to not being able to find you another place to stay. And I think that sort of, I guess, dynamic goes into what Shelby was saying at the beginning of having a strong communication pipeline and just being able to talk to these people like that. But it is definitely very disheartening. I don't want to necessarily compare it to like a Trump supporter, but it kind of feels like it, where it's like there is just blind support for no reason. They're
Yeah.
just there.
And I think these are people that are loyal because they also relate to the identity of these people and they put a lot of trust into their leaders. So why would they not be loyal if they didn't trust them? So I think when it comes to, I think not enough people have a good understanding of who their leaders are or who their leaders say that they are. And that also goes like leaders have power, which means that they're able to control information or the disbursement of information. So I think it comes down to being able to communicate and connect the dots. Um, and also like we need to have people that can relate to those in the community who relate either on a racial level or on an issues or identity level, and just say, hey, yeah, I know I used to feel that way too, and I used to really believe that. But after interacting with my commissioner, or after waiting 5 years for them to build a grocery store and they still haven't done it, I don't feel that they have my interest um, in mind anymore. So I think it comes down to communication and also the identity of the deliverer. That's important as well. And that's not something that's going to change overnight. I think it's going to take a really long time for people to come to realize the true identity or the true character of leaders, supposed leaders in our community. But that starts with having a conversation. And one of the things that I liked that we had under Gilliam's administration was the longest table. We haven't done that under Mayor Daley yet, but even if that's something that could be done under the Democratic Party or other civic organizations, we need to just start bringing people to the table together and talking in the open about what they know, because I think a lot of the issues with politics, especially in the South, is controlling of information. So what one side may know is not the same thing as what another side may know. And we don't share enough information with each other, and we just kind of keep it within a closed loop. So that is a detriment to us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not going to be something that's going to be solved immediately, but it starts with communication and just having conversation again. We just don't have enough conversation with one another. And if we do, we kind of stay segregated in our own communities. We need to be just dispersing more
Mm-hmm.
and not just staying in the Black community or going to the environmental community or going to the skating community or the family community. We all need to be spread out and not just, in one circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I I could go on and on about that topic because it just frustrates me so to no end. I guess because I grew up in the church, I've I hear a lot of stories, and I just want better for people in general. I we deserve better. Um, and again, these are hardworking people working, breaking their back, breaking their knees, breaking their ankles, working so hard, and they come every Sunday, every Bible study, every church event, and they continue to give money either directly for pastor blessing, what they call, or either tithes and offering to the church. And it's like, you're giving all of this money, and what are you getting in return other than the Sunday service itself? Like, I thought church was supposed to be a community thing. Like, you're a part of a church to be a part of a community, and whenever you need help, the church is supposed to be there. um and I just see these pastors putting the money in their pocket, going and buying a new truck, going and buying a new house, going and buying jewelry. I mean, this isn't not necessarily, talking about Tallahassee specifically. I just mean in general too. I mean, this, we saw, what was that guy in New York, that pastor in New York, get robbed on live. Or somebody saying, "Oh, y'all supposed to give me money for my wristwatch." It's like, I just want better for people. Like, if you do believe in God and you want to continue going to church and have that sort of experience, like, that's not the person that I guess you should be listening to if they're telling you to give your last dollar for their political ambitions or jewelry. um so yeah, and like Shelby said, that takes time. That again, I not necessarily calling them Trump supporters, but to pull somebody from that far to over this way, it's like it takes a lot of time, and it takes deep relational organizing and talking to people, and again, that constant connection. um and I'm hopeful that we'll get there. Again, I think younger folks aren't that far over to the point where they listen to that, or they care about what their pastor is doing personally. So I think it's hope in there, and like getting younger folks, but also again having that deep relational organizing for the older generation as well. Um, but yeah, this was a great conversation, y'all. This was great. Thanks, Will, for that last question. Doing your thing. Last thing I was gonna say, I guess a little fun note. Nicole was getting a tattoo this whole time, but her camera, like, isn't working right now. But
Oh, it
I
is.
Look
no.
at the tattoos.
Oh,
I wanted to see the
cool.
tattoo, but
That's so
she's
crazy.
gonna
The
show
flip
it.
is on.
It's okay. She's gonna.
Can you
Oh, there
see
we
it now?
go. Yeah, I see you now.
That's It said it was on this whole time, so I shut it off and turned it back on, and now it's working? Weird. Oh, do you want to see it? It's not done, so
Yay!
you're probably going to be like, what is this blob? But yes, I've been getting a tattoo the whole time.
Yeah, we
Let
want
me
to
Yeah,
show
the
it
see
whole
to
time,
it.
you.
even while you were
Okay.
talking.
Yes.
She's a G.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, mama.
That's crazy. Oh
So
my
it's gonna be
goodness.
huge. I've been here since 12, and this is my amazing artist, Devin.
Hey, Devin.
She's
Hey.
amazing. Yes, it's Judith slaying Holofernes, so it's a whole thing, like any man who abuses his power gets his head cut off. So
I like that.
Nice. No, love it. Badass. She can sit here and get a tattoo and talk politics at the same time. She knows no pain. Women know no pain.
Really.
But I guess like last like round like Red Robin around just to get like some fun things to send y'all off for the rest of y'all night. We honestly talked a little longer than I thought. But this was fun, of course, and I always want to do it again. But
Mm-hmm.
tell everyone like where they can like I guess follow you or something you want to plug. I know we talked about Nicole's op-ed, so make sure y'all go and read that. But I guess we'll start with Nicole and we'll go around and we'll end it for the night.
Well, really, the main place y'all can follow me is my Facebook. If you friend me, it's Nicole Sosa, SOZ as in zebra A. Of course, in Tallahassee, I talk a lot about politics and organizing on there. And lately, I've been dropping some really awesome poetry I'm enjoying because I'm trying to remind people that there are also good and kind things in the world, not just awful things. So if you want to connect with me, definitely do it on there. And yes, please read the op-ed and let me know what you think. It's about the mess that is the Florida Democratic Party. So you might appreciate it if you're watching this anyway. So thank you so much, Serenity, for inviting me and having me. This has been awesome.
Of course. Thank you. All right, go ahead, Shelby.
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Twitter if you're on there. It's at Shelby J. Green. I'm also on Instagram at ShelbyTLH, and I'm actually starting up a new organization. It's called Open Tallahassee, and it's like I'm calling it the People's Press, but basically I just want it to be a place where you can find out what's happening with the city commission. We just posted city commission meeting minutes. We're gonna be posting vote records. And then also having an open calendar so you can just find events going on in town. So that's a big effort that we're trying to get started in the new year. So if you're interested, feel free to find me on Twitter, Instagram, and I'm also on Facebook at Shelby Green as well.
Yay. All right, Will, go ahead.
Don't follow me. I'm just kidding. I mean, I am on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitter as casual_Will, casual Will. But I'm all Instagram as well, but not very active. But one thing I did kind of want a shameless plug, is me and my fiance April Cluse and a couple of other folks. We worked on a documentary, a short documentary film, last year about the Meadows Mobile Home Park and the evictions that were taking place there. Just real quick, real quick overview. We interviewed three different families who were losing their home. We interviewed experts in health and in politics and talking about the overall impact of it, how we could change. We even interviewed a city official to kind of hold their feet to the fire a little bit. And we were fortunate enough to show our film at the Tallahassee Film Festival and win Best Short Documentary Film. So we're going to make that film available here shortly. It's called Fire in the Meadows. And I've had some conversations with folks at FSU, but what I would like to do is try to do a public showing of it
Yeah.
with some with you student groups and some FAMU student groups, and get some sort of public showing and get a panel discussion of experts in housing and in these areas. So keep an eye out for that. If you're listening to this and you are very interested in that, want to know more about it, please reach out to me. I would love to talk with you about it and also maybe get some help organizing one of these
Sure.
screenings. So thank you.
Awesome.
Yes,
Yeah.
filmmaker. Look forward to watching that. And whenever you have like more information, I am happy to share it everywhere. Like, I think that whole Meadow situation is exactly like I don't know, just BS. I mean, my aunt was lived at the Meadows at the time too when that was happening, and it was just ridiculous. Like just kicking folks basically out, and and raising their rent for a patch of grass. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Um, but that's capitalism for you, I guess.
Yeah.
But thank y'all so much for joining the live stream. Again, any other if you guys want to follow them, see what else they're doing. These all three of these folks are very great people. And the Shelby running her race and Will running her running his race here. Honestly, like I said at the beginning, you have to be a special type of person to do that. So you two are two very special people. And Nicole, being a campaign manager for Will and being campaign staff for Josh, it takes a special type of person to work on a campaign, long hours, weekends, organizing these folks, telling them, hey, you said you was gonna knock on doors today. Did you knock on these doors? She was messing with me too.
Bring them up.
And real quick,
I did.
I want to push back real
True.
quick. I want to push back real quick because you said you have to be a special person to run for these races, and I know it's rhetorical, but you don't. And that's one lesson I want people to take from it, that you can be any type of person. And honestly, I would rather you not. Like, I want to see more regular types of people running for these races. Hey, I don't want to get on soapbox. That's all I want. More people need to run, and we will stand behind.
More competition.
Yes, make them shaking their knees. Because one thing we did do, last positive thing, one thing we did do this election is we made John Daly, Nick Maddox, we made them shake so hard they had to go and find more money.
They were sweating.
They was sweating. They was nervous
I told
as hell.
someone, I said I told my mom after on the election night when we found out that Josh had lost, I said, she told me actually, because I was, very upset and I was feeling, down and, like I wasn't worth it to keep trying. And my mom said, she said, take all about 47,000 of those people that voted for Josh and imagine them all standing in front of you. That's a huge amount of people. And I said, yeah. And she was like, and she was like, about 7,000 votes is not very far. He was probably, sweating when they were counting those votes. And I was like, yeah, we were knocking on the door. And she was like, no, you kicked that shit in. And I said, hey.
Damn right. Well, thank you all again so much for joining, and we definitely have to do this again for something else. 2024 is literally around the corner. We're about to be in 2023 in just a couple weeks. You know how the days and the years fly by. It will be November, whatever date it is, 2024, soon enough. So everyone out there that's watching, that's listening, make sure you get involved. Make sure you're going to these city commission meetings or these county commission meetings or listening in on YouTube or wherever they live stream them, and make sure you give these folks hell because they definitely deserve it. So
yes.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Nice chatting with you guys.
Thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. That was great. This was fun. If you stayed and listened to the whole thing, thank you so much. Thank you all for supporting me and this channel. And honestly, just to get a little sappy real quick, I did not think that folks would want to be a part of this, to listen to me ramble about issues. But the fact that you guys want to means so much to me and supporting me. So to continue supporting me, make sure you follow the YouTube channel. You can follow the Facebook page. Everything is at Something's Gotta Give. We're on Instagram, Something's Gotta Give pod. And we'll see you guys next